Okay, we've got Jason Farrell in the studio as well. Jason, this is a fascinating report that's been ongoing some time for you, this investigation into this drug, this pregnancy indicator in the 60s and 70s. And we had the story there, just one story from Mary Lyon 20 minutes ago about her daughter Sarah and how she believes that she was affected by taking this drug.
Yeah, I think what's new in this report today is a couple of things. First of all, we've seen that there are more documents expressing concern from various different scientists which have come out of the National Archives that have been sealed for over 30 years that no one has seen, which has been found by a woman called Nicola Walton. One of them actually expressly saying, we think this might be another thalidomide story. The other thing that's come out of this is a Freedom of Information request, which shows that Primodos was actually lost its license in 1970. So it was still being used up until 1977 for 7 years, when it actually wasn't licensed to be used as a pregnancy test. Now, I didn't know that until a couple of weeks ago. Letters were sent to doctors in 1975 warning them, and again in 1977, having done more research, saying, look, this drug is a problem, the link has been confirmed, this letter says. And the World Health Organization even asks in a report, why did it take so long between the initial research back in the late 60s to 1975 to properly research this drug? Now, as you heard, it may never be possible to prove whether Primodos actually caused these defects or not.
Yes.
There's a lot of suspicion.
And the drug companies, of course, deny this, but I just thought you had a fascinating investigation and conversation with that Dr. Gal.
Dr. Gal.
I just thought it was amazing. Here was this woman, she carried out this investigation, and basically authority was saying, well, all very well and good, but she's a bit irritating and a bit sort of over the top on this.
Yeah, and I showed her that letter yesterday, actually, and we'll have that in the report later today, her reaction to it. But she said, look, it just goes to show, doesn't it? They just didn't care, they just didn't take it seriously. And I think the problem is, this was an organisation that was set up, the Committee of Safety on Drugs was set up in the wake of the thalidomide scandal to look at any other thing that might be affected in drugs. Now, what could be more similar than a drug that was being taken during pregnancy that may cause defects in children? So for them not to have the alarm bells ringing, and in 1970, when the drug lost its license, to warn doctors, to warn pharmacists, and send out a big warning. I spoke to the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, who said if that happened today,
yes,
there would be warnings sent out, doctors would know, it would be up to them to be informed about this.
There's so much. I mean, if this turns out to be another thalidomide scandal, and I mean, today's committee, or the MPs today, they will decide whether there should be some sort of massive investigation into all of this. If it does turn out to be like thalidomide again, how many potential victims are we talking about here? What are the consequences for these big drug companies?
We know that, I mean, about 1.5 million women took the drug. However, it would have been a very small portion of those who would necessarily have defects in their children. It would depend on when they took the pregnancy test drug. They also caused a lot of, it's thought in some of the tests that they caused a lot of miscarriages, for example. Because you've got to remember, this drug was, it used the same ingredients as a morning after pill, only 13 times the strength. So it's perhaps not surprising that some of the tests showed that it could have caused a few miscarriages. The question may never be answered as to whether it caused birth defects, but as for the numbers, it's really hard to say.
I mean, let me ask you this, just explain again to me why it was withdrawn. If everybody's saying, oh no, there's nothing proven here, there's nothing to do with us, whatever, why was it taken off the market?
Well, it was drawn because there was concern. The authorities asked for it to be withdrawn. There was also other tests that you could take by them. There was the urine test, which was not invasive. It didn't require taking medication. So that they thought, well, the safest thing to do is let's just use the urine test. Let's just change the labelling on this drug. We don't have conclusive proof. Then they did do other tests. And it was withdrawn around the world as well, in America, in Australia, in France, and other countries as well. They had different versions of the drug. It was withdrawn throughout the world. But it wasn't until 1975, then 1977, when they had other tests. And in the mind then of the Safety of Drugs Committee, they felt that the evidence was conclusive that it could be a link between, that there was a link between defects and taking the drug. But as I say, there has been a case since, as the drugs company points out, which fell through because they weren't able to provide enough evidence.
Well, it is amazing. It is incredible, and just scary how we trust, you know, pills that we pop.
Well, I was actually talking to Marie about this in the green room, and she was saying that it was almost like the fewer were sacrificed because the same compounds were used in other medications like the morning after pill and the contraceptive pill, and the pharmaceutical companies who made the drugs felt that if it came to light that this was potentially harmful, it would put people off from buying those products. So it was a profit thing. People's health, this is what she believes, people's health was sacrificed for profit. I find that really appalling. Well,
Bayer, the drug company involved, of course, they deny any responsibility in all of this, and that any deformities were caused by that drug with children. Jason, thank you very much indeed. Good work. We talk now about education.